Hey guys, this is JimiKiwi. I'm gonna do the pork jerky thing and show you guys how I do mine. Everyone's got their own recipe. Some people might say that I cheat. A reminder, I'm not a big fan of pork, but a friend of mine, Tommy J. Jibba, he just got his, he just slaughtered his pig. So there's a surplus of pork in this household at this point. And anyway, I'm gonna start off with the ham steaks is what I'm going to use here, because they happen to be the leanest cuts of the meat from what was slaughtered. So the meat has to be trimmed up, and so I'm going to do that right now. There are probably faster ways to do it than what I'm going to do, but it's also going to make a nasty mess all over the place. I did wash my hands. I just got out of work and I figured this would be the best time to do something like this. So I'm going to start out by basically getting rid of any of the obvious fat in between the muscle tissue and any bone. Obviously you want to try to get out of there. I guess you could leave bone in jerky, but I don't think that would be too good. It'd be tough to decipher between what was meat and what was bone. I don't recommend it. It's a joke. So anyway, you're gonna get it to a point where it has relatively little fat. Oh, right there. And then trim it off as best you can. I think I need a different knife than this one. I figured this would be smaller and wouldn't look so wicked. But this is not very sharp. So anyway, once you get it to a point where there's relatively no fat, you get a good sharp knife. I used one of these. It wasn't very expensive. I got it from a big box store. This one is called the Yoshi blade. Basically, you want a super sharp knife if you're doing it this way. This is in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. A knife that'll do sushi really well. It'll cut thin slivers. So this is actually a pretty thin ham steak to begin with, but it's a little too thick to try to dehydrate that and chaw on that in the middle of the woods. So anyway, I just take and I start with this is a ceramic knife. It doesn't have to be. I just like it because it's very sharp and goes through the meat pretty easily. I am no sushi chef, so don't take any pointers as far as how to do that. But anyway, I'm able to cut off slices like that, nice and thin. And I just keep going until I think that, yeah, try not to whack this on anything. Until I think that it's thin enough, I can just keep slicing like filleting a fish almost. Slicing pieces off that are nice and thin. Oh, I have to rework this one. But you get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and process up the rest of this, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, I'm finishing up the last of these pieces here. This is the time when you make sure and get the last little bits of fat or connective tissue off of the meat. You might want to make soup or something out of that stuff. It's really good for that sort of thing. But anyway, the idea is no fat or connective tissue at all. Just the meat, just the muscle fiber, and that's it. And that's where you're getting the rest of that with a good sharp knife. Something that would be good for sushi is a good idea. And nice and thin. And don't worry about making it pretty. I mean, you can tear the stuff apart, and even if it seems a little thick, you can smash it down, you know, so that it ends up being thinner, you know, in the end. So almost done. I've just got these last couple of pieces to do. And geez, I should try to get this a little thinner. Like you would see smoked salmon or something in the store. Or sushi or any of that stuff. Nice and thin. Do not get the fingers. I repeat, do not get the fingers. We're supposed to eat the meat we're cutting up, not our fingers. Even though they probably taste the same. Alright, this is getting to be the last of it here. So now, yeah, you can just smash that stuff out, make it whatever. So now I take this and move all of these things out of the way to a better location. I don't know if that's going to work out. And now here I have my bowl of sliced up, shaved up meat. Everybody's got their own recipe. Some might say I'm cheating. This is curing salts right here. I take this and I put it in a cup, and you gotta really kind of guess close to how much meat you have. I'm guessing this is about 2 pounds, so I'm going with what I think is about 2 pounds worth of curing salts. And I don't like tap water in this, even though you don't have to use very much. I just use a little bit of bottled water and stir that stuff up and get it going. Just dissolving salt and water. It's just coarse salt, that's all it is. And I have a couple of different seasonings that I like. One is called Jerky Cure. One is called Original Jerky, and the other one is called Pepperoni Spice. I'm gonna put a little bit of the raw coarse salt right onto that. And I like with this pork, what I've noticed is I've experimented a bunch of different spices on different kinds of meat. Where I live, people eat things like deer and moose and bear and all kinds of, you know, anything they find. And so I've tried to experiment with different things, try to get rid of the gaminess, the flavor of whatever. I guess the bone marrow or something does that to it. But so I like to mix up. What I found is a little bit of pepperoni and a little bit of original pepperoni spice and original jerky spice for this. You can get these spices from anywhere, or you can pick out of your cabinet whatever you think tastes good on whatever kind of meat you're using. I've done stuff with teriyaki. I know buddies of mine are right into some of the hotter spices available. They like their jerky to be spicy, and that's the thing too, is like when you make it yourself and decide exactly how you like your jerky, the sky's the limit. You know, some guys say there's going to be 0% moisture. Other guys, like myself, I don't necessarily believe that. The moisture level does absolutely have an effect on how long you can store the stuff. And yeah, the idea of jerky is something for the pack or the trail or even at work on a cold day. But when I make jerky, it doesn't tend to sit around for very long. Yeah, if I was going to put it in the back of the cabinet for 6 months or try to, you know, freezer pack it or something, make it last 2-3 years, whatever, but it doesn't really hang out that long. So you can have a little more moisture in it. It makes it so you're not breaking your teeth or your gums trying to eat the stuff, and it's actually kind of good texture. So anyway, at this point, I've got this salt is dissolved enough for my taste. I'm going to pour this in here over the meat. And the same thing with the marinade times. You know, my opinion with this is that the directions and what a lot of people say is you got to marinate overnight. I don't agree with that because I like there to be a little bit of meat flavor left in what I'm eating and not just fully injected with whatever garlic infused butter creole, you know, whatever people want it to taste like. I like to still have a taste of meat in there in the end. So all I do is I get this stuff mixed together and I'm going to put it in a cold place. Now in my situation, I've got to put it into my freezer out in the garage for a few minutes. That's what will bring this stuff down to cold. It's still cold right now, but I want to bring it down to cold, and it's going to give me time to clean up my mess here and get the dehydrator set up and going and warm. I like this to go from cold temperature of the meat right onto the warm dehydrator. That is something in my own head I think is the way it's supposed to be, but either way, hand mixing this stuff up. And at this point, this is my scientific way of telling whether or not it has enough spice on it. I'm looking at the number of like peppercorn kernels. I don't see that many on here. So I'm going to open another packet of the spice and add more. That's my scientific method, looking at the number of peppercorn kernels. So I'm going to add more. And the same thing, I'm seeing a little bit of salt left in here. Get that out. And just squish it around until it's evenly coated. Something you might see at like a Chinese restaurant, or maybe the deli by you has this stuff pre-made and ready for the package, ready for the walk at your house. Anyway, this is looking closer to what I think is right. I'm not sure if you can see this. Whoops, in the light. It's evenly coated. And now I'm going to go put it in a cold place to get this meat cold and get the dehydrator set up and show you that.